All right, here we go. Late night happy hour Wednesday. This is our legal night law and supporter podcast. Justin Watkins, Battleborn Injury Lawyers, is here. Adam Hill is here. Appreciate Adam being on. Appreciate Justin being on. Just talked to Justin today. Talked to Adam today multiple times too. I forgot he did the show. That's how quickly I forget because we're doing a lot of shows. So, and I just saw Adam down at the Parkway Tavern as he was watching the Marcus Arroyo radio show. So we have a couple stories to follow up on that we talked about today. We'll get to those, but story I definitely wanted to do on the podcast. Not exactly cool doing that on terrestrial side. So there's a weird story going around, Adam. Can you explain this one? Has it actually been chronicled by real media sources about what bartenders and servers may have to do at a local bar chain in the case of money shortages? And does that also include, getting stiffed on a check is one thing, but does that also include the place getting robbed?
Apparently, at least one place. I talked to some bartenders yesterday just to try to get their thoughts on it.
Adam, turn yourself up a little bit if you have control over there.
My volume? All right. I do. Let me... Oh, that wasn't the right button. Either. How they figured it out. Look at this. Audio volume.
Loud.
Is that better?
All right.
No.
Yes,
better now?
That's better.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Sack fly, that sucks. So essentially the basics of the story are at least one local chain, which is pretty well known among the bartenders in the town that don't work at the chain that I talk to. So like, oh yeah, everybody knows about that. The policy is if you are robbed, you get a choice, you get a contract basically that says you agree to pay back the money in order to keep your job, whether that be in one lump sum or through deductions from your paycheck. You have to pay it back in order to keep your job. And it seems like this has been going on. It's been happening. In this case, it got blown up because the person agreed to have money taken out of their check in installments and then were dismissed. And the company was like, oh, by the way, you still owe what you were trying to pay back. And that's kind of when it went to the media and got blown up. So that, I talked to some bartenders yesterday, actually Monday. They said, oh yeah, I actually have friends that work there and that's their policy and that's what they have to go through. And it's kind of a nightmare. But what he said was, why would you ever agree to that? And I think the question is, well, there was a time, especially during the pandemic, jobs were so scarce in that industry, like you had to do what you had to do to stay there. So I know it's blown up. I can say on our website, it was a massive story. People were commenting and clicking and searching the story. So it's really blown up around town, but that's kind of the gist of the story.
Yeah. And so what the story is big enough that, it's people in my circles have come talk to me like, dude, did you hear about the story? I mean, as far as I could tell, it was all genesis out of a tweet of this guy who was dismissed and saying, yeah, now I've been dismissed. I'm going to go ahead and name names and name places and say exactly what happened. And he chronicled in this series of, I don't know, half a dozen tweets or so, exactly what happened, who the people were by name. And so the sort of legal aspects, because obviously you hear this from the get-go and you're like, there's no possible way that could be legal. And the answer is, maybe it can, right? You cannot withhold somebody's payment, their paycheck, or any portion thereof without very specific set of circumstances, right? If they're out of PTO, if there is a deduction for taxes or insurance that they've consented to. But the law is really vague when it goes beyond that and says basically you can deduct if there are three other factors that weigh in. And that is if the person agrees to the deduction and the employer has this isn't the exact language, but it's off of memory, good faith belief that the person owes the money. And that's the element that I'm stuck on. Because yes, they ultimately got everybody to consent to this. They didn't want to lose their job. They consented to the deduction. Okay, the law says you can do that. But it's not either or factor. It has to have both of these. And they must have a good faith belief that that person owes the money that they're withholding. And I just don't think that exists here unless you had some evidence that the bartender was responsible or in on the robbery. I do not believe that, that TP's tub has a good faith.
It's not them. It's not them.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, it's the Lodge Group.
Oh, Lodge. That's right. That's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, TPs.
So Justin, I think just to follow up on that part of it. So another part of the story is that the people that were doing the robberies were caught. It was a couple. Mm-hmm. They eventually got caught. At the point that they get caught and you realize that the bartenders are not in on this, when you have to void that under that premise of knowledge of somebody's in or not, wouldn't you then have to say, oh, now I know that they're not, so now I have to stop the payment on that?
Oh, I mean, 100%. But I would even argue that they didn't have a good faith belief in the first instance, right? So, I mean, if I'm the attorney for the person who's been slighted the money, I'm going into, okay, how many times have you made this arrangement? Oh, every single time you were robbed, every single time you had a good faith belief that your bartender was in on the robbery, which is apparently the stated policy. Everybody knows you've been robbed. You got a choice. You're either fired or you pay the money back. And so if that's true and you have a history of, dozens and hundreds of instances, and every time they were presented with that opportunity, I think you're in a great position for your claim to say that it was a illegal withholding.
So, like I said, I talked to somebody in the industry who was saying that their significant other works for, said group, and said that they've had long discussions about it because, like, literally in the employee manual, the handbook that you get, it says "do not resist" if there's a robbery. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to resist. I'm just supposed to hand over the money. And yet at the same time, I have to pay it back. So isn't that, like, first of all, you're violating your own handbook. But secondly, aren't you encouraging your employees to, like, be vigilantes and, like, fight back to save 100%. Their own money?
Yep, 100%. You're right. So, look, I'll go sort of theoretical on this approach. Company policy is not law. It does not create law, but it is absolutely evidence and admissible evidence as to what the expectations were of the employer for the employee and the standard that the employer was agreeing to be held to themselves. That's the evidence, right? Like if they're going to come in and say, oh, no, we don't believe that. And I have the public, I have your company policy. I don't win automatically. It's evidence to the jury that the position that they're taking in court is not a good faith position, that they didn't, that's not what they held themselves out to be. And they should hold themselves to the standard that they promised their employees that they would. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%. There is a conflict there between their stated policy and the position that they're putting the employees in. And that evidence absolutely would be used. And, I've dealt with employment issues most of the time. When I'm involved in employment, there is it's either sexual assaults or sexual harassments that rise to the level of assault. And I usually work with an employment attorney because there are, EEOC causes of action and processes. There's federal claims, there's state claims. And so I'm really not educated enough on those issues to walk you through exactly how that would look in those various different forums. But I know just enough to know that, Adam, you're right on. And I don't think it would be very difficult for any employees who were subjected to this withholding to find an attorney who would be willing to accept this case.
I have one more on this part before I give a bit of a counter argument, but can you agree to a withholding from your own check if that drops you under minimum wage?
Well, it doesn't change what your wage is, right? Your
Okay.
wages are your wages. You're just diverting your wages to somewhere else,
Okay.
right?
Because that was the argument
Now,
people came to me with. They were like, "But that's less than minimum wage. That's illegal." Like, okay.
no, your wage is your wage. You're just like I could ask, and you know what? This isn't uncommon. Some people have some of their money diverted. If they're a direct deposit, they'll have it directly deposited into a family member's account to help out that family member. It doesn't change what their wage is. You're withholding that amount from going to them, and you're diverting it over to their specified account. That's really what this is, right?
Right.
So it's slightly different than that, but not all the way. And it doesn't change what your wage is. It just changes who you're giving your wages to.
So somebody else came to me and presented me an argument and said, "Well, let's just say that this particular bartender really screwed up because they were counting their drawer out on top of the bar because there was no customers in there, and they were counting out their cash on top of the drawer, and that's exactly when the robbery happened." Not that it was suspicious. It was just this person's, hey, nobody's in here. Cool. I can count out the cash on the drawer out on the top of the bar, and decided to do it that way. How much does that change like the scenario?
Changes it none, because that person would not be responsible in the law to the employer for their negligence. That's what it is, right? Like I've negligently performed my duty, right? I can't go to one of my employees if they mess up a case and say, well, we would have collected a $20,000 fee on that case, but you missed a deadline and we lost. So I'm going to take 20 grand from you. That's not, they don't have a liability for that. Now, can I fire them for that? Yep. Right. And can I present them with scenarios of you're either fired or you do this, maybe take this course or learn about this thing, but I can't do the withholding because I don't have a good faith belief that they're responsible. The only way that that person would actually be responsible for that loss is if they're part of the theft.
So going back to the other side, is there a chance there, Adam, I don't know how much is out there on the story. Are there claims now that has this happened to like 5, 6, 7 bartenders? Like how many people do you have to have involved in a suit where it becomes a class action?
There's no set number. There's a very long answer to that, but the numbers have to be so high that it's impractical to try each of the cases separately. So 5 ain't doing it, but 50 might.
All right. Worst case scenario, real quick. If, as Adam said, you're kind of forced into being a vigilante because you don't want to, I want to fight. If you were murdered, right? If you got shot, would your family, what would the family need to make a case to go, you got him murdered? Like he felt like that was his only recourse or her only recourse.
Nothing. Because it's on the job and you're the employee. And so they have civil immunity under work comp. So there would not be a claim there.
Damn. So your option is, I guess, quit and then leave the country. Whatever they get in the last paycheck, and then after that, I mean, it's interesting too. Like the guy who got fired, and they still wanted his money. Could they then send it to collections? Would they do that?
Anybody can send anything to collections. The question is, do you have recourse if they do so? Yes, I would argue in that situation, that would create another cause of action, right? So you have the employment causes of action for the labor laws of violating the labor laws and withholding money improperly. If they then put you into collections and try to collect against you and reported it to your credit, then you would have a defamation of credit claim against them as well. And that's, frankly, of the two claims, that's the better claim. I mean, from a recovery standpoint, from how much money you're going to get, way better to go with the defamation of credit claim than just the lost wages, because you're basically only going to get back the lost wages.
What about what Brady said here? Are they double dipping, forcing employees to pay back and getting damages during criminal sentencing. Any recourse on that?
Oh, I mean, there's recourse on the whole thing, right? You don't even need that to get there. But I don't know. Now, if they caught the people and they put restitution in any plea agreement and paying the money back, often do, they are double dipping, right? But the single dip is a violation of law. So again, on that one element that I have a bone to pick with, which is they have a good faith belief that they owe the money.
So how is this
a clever lawyer could work an argument back the other way, I think, too.
Hey, Adam, before you jump in, you mentioned there's a bunch of comments. Was that on Facebook or on your newspaper page?
I thought it was on the original tweets and on the locally. I think LV locally put it out a few days ago.
So the comments are on Twitter, not the newspaper.
Yeah. I think we disabled the comments.
Yeah, I was gonna say you guys don't have comments anymore.
Yeah, we disabled those. In the tweets that we put out about this case, I mean, those are on comments. How has this happened for so long? That's my question. It's like a running policy, and it's a small town. We all know about this. So how has this happened for so long?
It takes somebody to sort of speak out. I think when the people agreed to the deal and they got to keep their job, then they just kind of called it good and moved forward. But this guy agrees to the deal and they still dismiss him. Yeah. And that's what it took, a misstep, right, by them before they get called out. And, I hope, I hope they're feeling it. I know that in the comments of the original story, because I read it it popped up on my timeline, because LV Locally is on my timeline. It popped up and I was on it within the first couple of hours. And right off the bat, they were like, okay, hit the Yelp page. And, so I went to the Yelp page and Yelp actually had disabled rating the lodge because it said a suspicious volume of reviews so that you couldn't review it currently.
I think we've discussed this many times before, but you can't agree to something that supersedes the law, correct? Because so people said, hey, he signed it.
Well, not in this law. You can on a lot of laws, for sure you can. The law can protect you in ways and you can waive those rights. Like, for instance, you have a right to a jury trial, right? It's actually in the Constitution. You have a right to a jury trial. You can waive it. You can agree otherwise. But there are some laws that they will not allow you to waive. They're unwaivable. And this is that instance, right? It's providing these protections and says, even if they agree, not good enough. You're still violating the law if you don't have that second prong, which says you believe they owe the money. So if it didn't have that second prong, sure, you can waive, you have rights and you have the right to waive your rights, for sure. You do.
I guess, is there something spelled out in those laws that say these are laws that you can't waive? Like, I'm just thinking of contracts you sign between people. Yep. You're like, well, that's not even legal. Well, you signed it.
Yep. That's right. Yes. So a lot of laws will say, like, for instance, in your, this is because it's particular to me, it might be boring to everybody else, but like in your auto insurance policy, you may see in your policy that it says, hey, if you have any dispute with us about any amounts to be paid, you must go to arbitration. Nevada law said you can't have that in your contract. Right. You cannot force people to go to arbitration. If they have a dispute, they can litigate it in court just like everybody else. Now, if I wanted to, just because somebody violates my rights and I choose not to pursue it, yes, what they did was still against the law, but they're not going to be held accountable for it. Right. So in my instance, I could say, you know what, I want arbitration. So I can waive it and say, hey, you guys want to go to arbitration? I have the right to ask them, but they don't have the right to ask me. So that the laws can be very specific about who has the rights and whether or not you can even ask for it, right? Like the insurance companies can't even put it in there, can't suggest it, can't even ask for it.
So if anyone's just jumping in, we got into a story for like 15 minutes. So Wallapai Lodge was robbed. Apparently, they have a policy: if their place is robbed, the bartender there has to actually pay back the money that was robbed. So a guy agreed in his original agreement to his contract to do that if it happened. He was going to pay it in installments, and he gets fired, and they're like, "You still owe us the money." So I wanted to go through some of the comments, because comments are often, great for spurring on more conversation. I don't even, have we even hit this yet? Multiple people here are saying, "Don't you have insurance for that sort of thing? And if you're getting the money from the employee and you collected insurance on a robbery, isn't that insurance fraud?"
Oh, I'm sure that they're not making. I mean, they would have to be incredibly stupid to make the insurance claim too, if they're being paid back. I'm assuming they're making their bartenders pay it back so they don't have to make the insurance claim, right? Because each one of those insurance claims is going to raise your premium. You're going to be seen as a high target, area for robberies. Your premium is going to go up each year. So I'm assuming that they're having the bartenders paid back, so they're not only losing the money from the till, but losing money by paying higher premiums too. But I could be wrong.
Adam?
The comment we just saw go up of what's to stop like the owners from robbing their own bar and then getting the money and getting it paid back from their employees.
I've seen other people say that. There's comments like that on the original Twitter feed.
That would be criminal. So now we're going into the next level. That would be criminal, and they would go to jail. And not, great segue into a story that we've never discussed. Not unlike the R. Kelly situation, if there are multiple owners and they're agreeing to do this, you have racketeering and RICO issues because it's organized crime amongst other people with a concert of other people, and it's going to have increased penalties. You can go to jail for a very long time on racketeering and RICO, as R. Kelly's about to find out.
Wait, is it? I mean, this is obviously, it's completely ridiculous. I'm just thinking from a legal perspective. If I own a bar, if I steal money from it, isn't it my money?
If there's more than one owner, right?
And what if it's a solo owner?
Yeah, right. But even if it's solo owner, if you devise a scheme, you pay somebody to come rob the bar. So now I got another person involved, right? Now we got two people involved, right? Pay somebody to rob the bar to give the money back to me so that I can make a claim against my bartender and get paid back again. That's racketeering. Yeah, that's organized crime.
Okay. What if I own the bar
and you put on a hoodie?
I put a ski mask on and a hoodie, and I go in and I'm like, give me the money. And they give me the money. And then I could be like, yeah, I was just getting the money I own the bar. I wasn't robbing him. I was just getting my money. But
why were we wearing a ski mask? COVID. It was cold. It was cold. It's just the COVID mask.
It was cold outside.
Yeah.
I mean, is it robbery if it's my own money? I guess that's kind of the OJ memorabilia question. But like, if it's my own money, is it still a robbery? Like, if I didn't, I'm ignoring the what's going on with the employees. I was saying, if I went and took and robbed money from my own business, is that stealing?
No, you can't steal from yourself,
okay.
But you still can't commit a crime under that scenario, right? If you're threatening somebody with assault.
I just said, give me the money.
I know, but it's a reasonable person standard. There's not magic language. You can't just say, I never said, give me the money, or, right? If a reasonable person implies it from the situation, you're going to jail.
Fair enough. How is R. Kelly ever going to be free?
I don't know. I mean, it's a minimum of 10, right? Maximum of life.
One of the comments I've seen on the story, talking about something similar, some lady says, my sister had a similar thing happen working at a convenience store. She was fired for being short. Given an ultimatum to pay the amount she was short or be prosecuted for stealing money, she chose to pay the money rather than potentially facing legal charges. She was then denied unemployment during the pandemic because the state considered her reimbursement of the money to be an admission of having stolen it. But,
that one now is a little different. Right? Because they're saying, we believe you stole the money. You're short on your till. You weren't robbed. We think you stole it. And they may have a good faith basis to say you stole it. And you then say, yeah, okay, you got me. I agree. I think that withholding is fine. Because again, now if somebody steals from you, they have a legal liability to you. It's not like I just messed up at my job. You're committing theft. You're committing embezzlement, right? That you will have a liability to me for that amount of money.
What in that scenario, and like I think it applies to the bar one too. But if a convenience store were to say to you, and let's just say you were short, I was short $200. I gave extra change. I didn't know it was a mistake. I'm short, and they came to me and said, "Hey, either you're fired, either you pay it back out of your own pocket, or you're fired." And I'm like, okay, you know what? I screwed up. I didn't steal it. I screwed up. I'm going to pay this back because I want to keep my job.
Right.
And then they still fire you. Like, is there any protection of you for agreeing to that? Because at the lot, I mean, the case was, or at the bar that we're discussing,
right.
The case was like, hey, this person did agree to pay the money back, and then they ended up firing them anyway. So, like, is there any protection that you can have of like, okay, if I pay this back, like, I want to keep the job. Like, how long do I get to keep it for? That's a ridiculous ask if I don't get to keep it long term.
Yeah, I mean, you would have, in theory, a breach of contract claim. We had a deal, and you broke the deal. I performed my end of the deal, and you didn't. It's almost like our Dana White situation. It was like, hey, man, I agreed to admit that I committed this crime and to keep your name out of it, and you were going to give me a bunch of money, which is also another crime. and then you didn't give me the money. It's sort of like that. I mean, you have a contract. And as long as that contract, it doesn't violate public policy, it can be enforced. So, yeah, I think so.
Another interesting comment. Is there actually is there a Facebook? Is that where this was from? A Facebook Vegas bartender page? Someone says, post this on the Facebook Vegas bartender page. I used to be a longtime local gaming bartender. Word of mouth travels fast amongst local gamers and bartenders. Hit them back where it hurts. After reading this, I will never step foot in any of their location. I wonder if they do get hit by gamers where they're like, yeah, we're not betting at a place like that. We're not going to play the machines at a place like that. I don't know if people actually will rise to action.
I mean, you guys would be in a better position than me, but judging by how popular this story has been, I think that there's something to that. And I just went to that Yelp page, and so the quote is, unusual activity alert. The business recently received increased public attention, which often means people come to this page to post their views on the news. While we don't take a stand one way or the other when it comes to this incident, we've temporarily disabled posting of content to this page as we work to investigate the content you see here reflects actual customers. So,
I mean, the first thing is I see one comment, then I see a short one. It's someone in Norwalk, California, commenting on it, saying this place bullies its workers. Just take a pass.
Yeah.
Another one, Ed G and Henderson. Never again. The owner's forced an employee, blah, blah, blah. Plenty of other options in town. So
I think, I think there will be some people that right away are like, I'm not going there. But I feel like it's also, it's NFL and NBA, right? I'm never going to watch it again. When's the last time you watched a game? Oh, 4 years ago. Okay. Well, what does that matter?
Yeah, but we got so many choices here, though. It's a little different.
I go out every weekend, so.
Well,
and that's not a place not a place that I frequented except for week one.
You weren't happy anyway,
and I did not like it, and I was reminded of the fact that I don't like what they do there. So,
sorry, sorry,
Jesus,
trying to clinch a freaking division here. It's ridiculous.
Boy.
Robbed of a home run in the bottom of the eighth.
Brady says, how does a union not jump at this, trying to unionize them ASAP?
I'm not real good at understanding the union laws. But yeah, I mean, anytime you got the tough part is, right, they have to be skilled and collaborate together to ensure that there has to be enough of them that there isn't a supply problem to the demand, right? And so Yeah, I would hope so. I think it would be the right time to strike for sure.
All right.
Were you trying to move on to something different? You got
Nope.
more comments?
Keep going. No.
Oh no, I was going to say that me and Justin had a discussion off air today that we could revisit on the air at some
Go ahead.
point.
Do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I brought up a question to you about just a weird legal thought that I had this weekend. And I thought it turned out to be fairly interesting in that there was a public debate between Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White about fighter pay again, and it's gotten very interesting back and forth between them. But the part that I thought was fascinating from a legal perspective was, once again, in response to a comment from Oscar De La Hoya, Dana White called him a crackhead. And I thought it was interesting in that I know that Oscar has had a cocaine problem. So I asked you, would a defense or would a slander claim be possible if you call somebody a crackhead and they come back and say, hey, you lied about me. I'm a cocaine addict, not a crackhead. I don't think it necessarily applies. Like, obviously, there's not going to be a lawsuit out of this. I don't know. But I just think in a general perspective about slander and things like that, like where the definition is of something like that, where you're like, you're an alcoholic. No, I'm not. I'm a heroin addict. What are you talking about? Like, what are you saying? Like, how do we kind of navigate that area?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I see a couple different points of contention that I think reasonable legal minds could differ on. The first one is the definition of crackhead. Is it a statement of fact when you call somebody a crackhead? Or is it an opinion-laden word that it has been used so broadly now that people that call other people crackheads don't actually mean that they use crack, right? Which, in my experience happens, right? People, oh, you're going to go talk to that crackhead, and they don't actually mean anything about crack usage, right? They just mean that person's like a little off or a little crazy. So that's contention number one. If I'm on that jury, I'm like, calling somebody a crackhead is not a statement of fact to me. It's certainly meant as a slight for sure, but I don't think it's a factual slight. The second point, though, is if we assume that it is a factual statement, two things. One is that factual statement technically incorrect. And then two, are there any damages associated with that factual statement? So let's take the second part first. To your point, hey, crackhead. Wait, whoa. I'm not a crackhead. I'm a cokehead. You've now damaged my reputation. I would never use crack. I only use coke. Yeah, I'm too high class for crack. I'm a cokehead. Would there actually be damage to somebody's reputation by being called a crackhead when the truth is they're a cokehead? I think it's certainly debatable. Okay.
I would absolutely make the argument. Like there is a connotation to crackhead. You're like in an alley, trying to score whatever you can, and a cokehead is like a popular, rich, at the club kind of guy. Like right. I would say that's a level.
I think it's worthy of conversation. I do think there is a debate that could be had there. But the interesting point that you and I were talking about off air is I was saying, if I had to defend that, they decided to sue, and I'm trying to defend the defamation action, I'm getting this MIT professor, or, I don't know, some nerd who's going to get on there on the stand as my expert and say, actually, the chemical compound that is crack and the chemical compound that is cocaine are indifferent. They are the same chemical compound. They are the same drug. They're just in a different phase of their compound, And
can I get credit for my counter argument, which I've joked that I have a legal degree just from talking to you for the last couple of years. I feel like my counter was pretty good.
Yeah, go ahead.
That I said, well, the government has defined them as very different things by the way they sentence them. So clearly, the United States government has recognized that these are two very different things.
Right. To which my response would be that the government, number one, has a racist Jim Crow era policy in place that has nothing to do with the chemical compound. And two, to the extent that they are sentenced differently, it's not based on any physical difference in characteristics, but maybe has to do with the ability to traffic. And they were attempting to stop trafficking rather than the use of the drug itself through these penalties. So I think that would be an interesting argument, and I could just see a judge going like, "You fucking guys, like, come on right now. Like, this is really what you're going to make me decide on is because it would be a motion for summary judgment, right? I'd be doing a motion to dismiss the case, saying, hey, you heard my guy. They're identical, and there's no expert in the world who's going to say they're not identical. It's the same compound." and then you're the attorney going, "Oh yeah, well look at these sentencing guidelines, judge. You just sentenced somebody 2 months ago on this guideline, and it's different."
I was actually just gonna ask you that. Like, if the argument was, "Hey, the government is wrong about this. The government had it wrong."
Yep.
Could you cite that judge? Could you say, "Hey, listen, you yourself
don't like it. They do not like it,
and did this for crack." So you yourself have done this.
Yeah. You don't say that in that way. What you do is you say, this court has previously enforced, the sentencing guidelines for crack and cocaine on these instances. If you want to reference case number, blah, blah, blah. But if you say you yourself, you're going to get sanctioned and they might put you in cuffs.
I missed that day of the Justin Watkins Law School. Where you don't accuse the judge outright of screwing something up.
No, they didn't screw anything up. They have sentencing guidelines that they have to follow. There's no discretion there. They followed the law, but you refer to the court as an institution, right? This court has found. You never refer to this judge specifically, and people they will violate that, right? You'll hear attorneys sometimes say, "Well, judge, you're technically not supposed to do that. You are supposed to address the court as the court because it's supposed to take that personal sort of edge off of what's being done because the court is not enforcing their own personal beliefs. They don't have the right to do that. They have to enforce the laws whether they agree with them or not."
I don't like all the formalities, but listen, bro. Would I be thrown out very quickly?
No, sometimes. I mean, obviously, different courts in different jurisdictions are different. Like I remember one time, like I can't remember. Must have been the Pittsburgh Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl. But like right before that, the Friday before that, there was this really contentious hearing that was happening in front of me. I was the next case to be called, so I'm just sitting in the gallery, and so this guy gets done, blah blah blah. He loses, and the court is like, basically the judge is like, "Hey, you have anything further?" And he's like, "Nope, but the Steelers are gonna win their 6th Super Bowl on Sunday." And he just like grabs his shit and gets out.
My God.
So, like, he didn't say anything that was like offensive to the court, but he just like, he was clearly displeased and at the same time fired up about the Steelers. I guess it's interesting. You gotta be careful, and I think it's actually for good reason. I think the formality of the court makes sense to me. I think there's tons of times judges have to enforce the law as written, even though they disagree with it, and even though they don't like the outcome.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I think obviously the judge needs to follow the law, and that's what they should do. But the formality portion of it, I'll tie it in. It's the same argument that I've had in the journalism world. I think I would have it in the courtroom world as well. Of like, isn't it it's about the people, right? I mean, the court is about equal justice, it's about the people, and I think if it was less formal, no, I'm not saying like come in here and be like, "Fuck you, bro," like not like that. But I mean, I think if it was less a formality, I think people would understand courts and laws better. Like I think it would be there. Like again, I'll tie it back. Like I've had the argument in journalism world of like we are so caught up sometimes in like, oh, that's not our style. We don't use that style for that. Like we spend hours obsessing over, do you call it stratosphere or the stratosphere? You know, that kind of thing. And I'm like, we spend so much time on that mundane shit, which is important to us, but nobody else gives a fuck about it. That like if we wrote in a more conversational style and less stringent AP style all the time, it would stories and journalism would be more accessible to a lot of people. I feel like, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I think court could be the same way.
I mean, it's a worthy discussion to have. It really is, and it's a discussion that is happening in courtrooms across the country. But I'll just say, as a consumer of news, and I don't know if I'm the typical consumer of news or
You're not.
But
You're not.
but there are plenty of opportunities today to read news in that less formal style, in the more conversational style, and I do not like it. It loses professionalism, and to me, I don't believe it's as credible. I had somebody send me a news article, I think it was early on the pandemic, like, look, see, it's this, whatever. And it was like, I don't know, fucking, pandemic.org.news or some shit. I don't know, some bullshit. Anyway, they sent it to me and I'm like, four words in, I'm like, dude, this person doesn't even know the difference between there and there. I'm done.
Right.
Like,
well, okay. I'm not advocating that.
No, but no, I know you're not. Right. But that lax style, to me, I think loses some journalistic integrity and credibility as a consumer of news. I'll say in the court aspect of things, there has long been a tradition that is to create a sterile, unbiased environment. And many would argue that's all just a fallacy, right? That it absolutely is biased. The black robes, back in the day with everybody had the same wig, and all the courtrooms look identical. That was the thought process, right? Was we are not people. We are an instrument of the Constitution. So you don't address me as a person. As I sit here, I am not a person. And I do recognize that is important. I think institutions matter, because after serving, now I'm going way tangent, but after serving in the legislature, what became apparent to me is this whole fucking thing is fragile, man. It is not on such a rock solid foundation that, as a kid growing up, and as an adult, I thought it was, and the thing that holds it together better than anything else at the end of the day are the institutions. There is some respect for those institutions and that process and the grandeur of it, creating these nice courtrooms with the black robe and the whole thing. While it may seem inaccessible, it does seem to carry authority, and we need it to, because the minute everybody stops believing in the authority of the institutions, it's all gone, right? January 6th is just like a small example of that.
Are we kind of there?
Yeah, we are there.
I think we're kind of there already. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I wonder. I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. That's a great counter, and I would agree with it. I also wonder if it was more accessible and people understood it more, if maybe it becomes more of an institution because people get it, and now maybe not court even necessarily, just institutions in general. If they were more understood, then maybe people would be more trusting of them because they get it. Because right now it's like, well, that's not me. I don't talk like that. I don't act like that. That's not me. I don't believe in it. But I agree with what you're saying.
I guess my counter is I don't think that there actually is a lot of good faith interest in understanding that stuff, right? Like if you want to understand it, you can. It's there, right? It's not easy all the time, right? That's why there's lawyers, because we fucking make this shit all complicated, so you have to hire us, right? we write the laws in super complicated ways so that you need us. I mean, if I'm pulling back the curtain, that's really what's happening here. But you know, I mean, there certainly are. Every court hearing is a public hearing. Anybody who wants to understand how it works, right? If you have a hearing coming up, and you're like, I'm not sure that this thing is going to go my way. You can go down, and you got it on a Monday. You can go down to court on a Friday and go sit on any court hearing you want. It's a public forum, so there are ample opportunities for that to happen. I do think, though, you have seen a relaxing of the formalities in some aspects that are very helpful. Juvenile court, drug court, a lot of the diversionary programs that exist now that try to keep people out of the system on their first, second offenses are very informal. Because the thought process is once you're involved in that formal system and it doesn't work for you, you're never going to abide by it again. And you're going to become a career criminal. Yeah.
By the way, courts are open again, COVID-wise.
Yep.
I actually was trying to check in that last week because I thought I'd have to go to court on Saturday. Didn't.
Here we go.
I didn't.
Can we get this cleared up, by the way?
No, John. I'm talking about John Jones.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant your court.
No. I thought I'd have to go to court on Saturday for John Jones, and I was trying to find out if I could. It was hard to get an answer, but he ended up not having to be there.
If you went to court, would you get arrested? You have a warrant out, right?
No, I'm good. I'm good, I think.
Oh, it's all covered, you think?
Well, first of all, I tried to pay my registration last week, and it was blocked.
Yep.
Which was perfect.
Adam was telling me about jumping through all the hoops. So what you called someone to check if your registration was up and paid for when you got the registration ticket.
Right, but I had a renewal. And I usually just go to there's a smog check place right down here on St. Rose. I'm pointing as if anybody knows where I am. Right down here on St. Rose, there's a smog check place that you also renew your registration. And so I went there and paid and did the thing, and the guy's like, your registration's blocked. And I was like, come on. So I called, and it was over the ridiculous fake parking ticket nonsense from downtown. And so I called up, and it actually ended up being, it was fine. It wasn't that hard. I just had to pay. But I told the lady, I was like, this is stupid. She was like, it was for no registration. I'm like, my car is registered. You are the registration people. You see that my car was registered. Why is this a thing? What is the process here? I said, aren't you I said, ma'am, you're the registration people, right? She said, yes. I was like, I got a ticket for no registration on this date. She said, yes. I said, my car was registered, correct? And she said, yes. And I was like, are we done? No. How are we not? On what planet did those series of questions not lead to, oh, you're right, that's done? On what planet is that a thing? And she's like, well,
appear in court, dude.
She's like, I don't get to decide that. And I was like, okay.
She doesn't have that power.
I was like, aren't you looking at my registration right now? And she said, yes. And I said, what was the day of the ticket? And she told me, I can't remember the date. She told me, I was like, was my car registered on that date? And she said, yes. And I said, what's the ticket for? Not having your car registered. And I was like, are we having the same conversation right now? Are we both, we're both on the same page on here, right? And she said, we are. But there's nothing I can do. And I said, well,
she can't do it.
Why? How can you? Why isn't that just? Oh, correct. Delete. Why is that's other stuff I'm talking about of like common sense in the legal process.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't there be some?
Well,
why would that? Why would that not? Because you're right. She was very helpful and nice. I'm not blaming her and whatever. she was very cool, and we ended up handling it. It was fine. I just paid money, and it went away. But I'm like, why is that not? It reminds me of like ushers and security people at events, which is another thing this week of like zero flexibility. But like,
but you had an opportunity.
True, but
okay, and you chose not to do it
because it was so much time. You're right. You're right. But why isn't it? Okay, I have this lady on the phone. I finally got through to somebody. I finally have the person on the phone.
Yeah.
Why on earth is there a process where that series of questions and answers doesn't result in everything going away? Why is that not? Why is that the case?
It would have if you had done that in court, but you chose.
There was a court at the time. It was COVID at the time, and I kept calling and I couldn't get through to anybody.
No, you didn't call. You didn't call one very important person.
But
okay.
I mean,
you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to do anything other than text me a picture of the ticket, and it would have been done. And you would have none of these frustrations. You'd have had none of this. It would have all been done.
I agree, but I'm saying with all that in the past, why is there like you heard the conversation? I understand that.
She doesn't have that power.
But what I'm saying is, why do we not have a system where what I just laid out is very simple, right?
We do, but you didn't talk to the person at the time.
That's fine.
Had the power
I'm saying that's over. That's over. What I'm saying is, we're here now. I finally have somebody on the phone after trying for months to get somebody on the phone. For months to try to get somebody on the phone, couldn't. Finally have somebody on the phone. Here, step 1, 2, 3. This is solved. It's over. Why is that not a thing?
Dude, it's like
why isn't that a thing?
It's like you talking to the collection company when they have a judgment against you because you didn't show up in court. The collection company, DMV is just a collection company at that point. They have no power, right? They have a court order that says that you fucking didn't have your registration. You didn't go to court but you didn't go to court to dispute it. They don't have the power to overturn the court.
Hold on. Hold on.
Collection agency.
No. This was City of Las Vegas.
Whatever.
She's the one. She's from the place that gave the ticket.
I thought you said it was the DMV.
No. The DMV had it blocked, so I had to call City of Las Vegas to get them to take off the block.
Okay.
And she's like, "There's nothing I can do." I'm like, "Why is there nothing you can do?" Like we just said, the ticket was an error. Like we figured that's solved. That's over. It's done. Okay, it's an error. So delete it. And she goes, well, I can take $30 off of it. I'm like, no, delete it. Yeah. Like, you just said the ticket was an error. You just said that. So why is it not going away?
No, yeah, that's fine. I think you're right. I think you're right in this situation. I thought you were talking to the DMV.
No, it's the City of Las Vegas. Yeah. But like she's like, well, as you said, she's like, it's too late. You could have done that before. And I'm like, I tried to call 100 times. I can never get through to anybody. Now I finally got through to somebody. Like, how about we solve this now? It's like, well, we solve it by taking $30 off of it. No, you just said to me that the ticket was an error.
Just for a supervisor?
No, I was like, because she also goes, she was like, well, she's like, your registration is due today because of course it was the last day that was due. She's like, if this is not solved in the next half hour, it's going to be late. I was like, okay, well, that's wonderful. That's great. But she was, like I'm saying, she was helpful. But like, and I totally, she was great. She did it, and then she also emailed me after. She's like, all right, I processed it. You can go register your car now. And my car was registered literally within 30 seconds of that email. Like it was an easy process. But like, why are things so hard when they should be so easy? In that case,
would have been super easy.
It wasn't. I tried to call 100 times. I never got through.
One phone call, bro.
Right. Okay. But like I said before, I don't want to throw that stuff on you. But I still have the other. Easier, dude. I still have the other nonsense tickets I have to take care of.
You've wasted more of my time telling me this story than it would have wasted if you would have called me up and I would have handled it.
I don't think this is a waste of time. I think it's good for everybody.
No, it's not. I know. I'm teasing you.
No, I still have the other stuff I have to take care of, which I'm sure it's the same situation. But yeah, it's just it's completely. Those are the kind of things that I'm saying of like, that's where people get frustrated, and that's where people don't trust the system anymore, right?
Oh, dude, I got to tell you, It was a completely different story. I get to offer your bad driving and bad DMV record into my bad DMV record. So you see all those cops coming out on Cactus recently?
Oh yeah.
Dude, I got 2 tickets on consecutive days on the same street for the exact same speed. And my daughters are like, now they are just freaked out. They're like, Dad, how fast are you going? What's the speed limit?
Were they in the car with you?
No, but they saw the tickets and I told them about it. So, no, one of the times they were. So I was bringing them home from practice on the second day, right? We get pulled over. I'm like, I'll get pulled over. And he's like, okay, I got you for 52 and a 35. And I'm like, oh, okay. He goes back and my daughters are like, oh, okay. And I'm like, hey, look in the console there. And my daughter's like, what's this? I'm like, that's a ticket from yesterday. What's the speed say? She's like, 52? And I'm like, yeah, it's the same speed. Because you cannot freaking drive on Cactus at 35 miles an hour.
If you're going 35, you're a danger. Everybody's speeding past you.
You will get killed on that road at 35. You can't get over to get on the freeway. You cannot move.
Did you try to explain that to the officer?
Oh, fuck no. They know. That's why they picked that spot.
Well, I'll give you
tickets all day.
I'll give you another
one. Hold on 1 second. If you feel it's unsafe, can you pull over onto the shoulder and let everyone go by?
You'll never get to where you're going.
There's you need a million cars.
I have cars,
and you need to get on the freeway there. It's a freeway entrance, and you have to get over.
Oh, I have 2 areas near me where it's 25, and every once in a while they'll have a bike cop out there, and I got caught doing 37 and a 25. And now when people tell me, I pull over into the shoulder and let them go by.
Oh, there's no options like that. Dude.
I do it all the time. I'm like, I'm not getting a ticket again.
There's no shoulder.
Go ahead,
there's no shoulder.
Justin, I don't know if you ever go this way, but I've drive it every single morning, around the same time. If you take Star from where my house is to the Raiders facility, I mean, I don't think there's a car going less than 70. Yeah, and it's 35. There's cops every single day, and every day I'm like, I guess I'll go 60 because people are just flying by me, and I'm like, this is insane. It's completely insane, and the cops are pulling people over every day, and I'm like I'm dangerous if I go the speed limit. I cannot go the speed limit on this road. It would not be advisable. Oh, so dude, that's when it's weird.
I'm really tempted to not just get this ticket taken care of and to actually go to court and be like, there's a reason why they picked this road. It is impossible to go 35. And why in the world is a 6-lane road have a 35 mile an hour speed limit? Like, come on. 6 lanes. Freeway entrances. It's crazy.
As Razorback said there, 35 Southern Highlands Parkway. It's a parkway. They call it a park. It's right here out my door. I could walk there right now. It is a fucking freeway. That is a freeway, and it's 35. That is insanity. And I'll also say, I walk out there almost every night. I often walk by your house, Justin. I should say hello. I walk out there almost every night. Cars are going 100.
Oh, dude, yeah.
At 1 a.m, cars are going 100. It's 35. That is insanity. It's crazy.
Yep. I'm gonna let's record this thing. It's in there. I'll present this as evidence against my ticket.
Maybe my favorite ticket story ever, when Koken got nailed for doing 21 in a 15 mile an hour school zone. He was so pissed off on the air.
Oh, well, dude, school zones. Yeah. You can't. No, 20's way too much.
Yeah, there's some weird school zones though. There's a school zone on DI, probably just east of Arville, where DI is 6 lanes across, 3 on each side, and all of a sudden everyone's got to slam it down to 25. So it's weird.
It's just west of Arville, isn't it? Between Arville and Decatur?
Yeah, whatever.
That's like a middle school that's right on the road too.
It is right on the road. Yeah.
Oh, if you want to see, you go on Town Center up by the BBBC.
Yeah.
Right by Faith Lutheran High School there. You got it goes to 15. There isn't a person in fucking Summerlin who goes 15 in that school. They just, it's like it's not even there. They don't even give a shit, dude. They're just full on. If I try to hit my brakes to get down to 15, man, it's like convergence on me. There's no stopping. So yeah, you just hop up there. If you're a cop, you'll get people all damn day.
Damn.
So I guess I should take care of all the outstanding tickets I have.
Yeah.
At some point.
Just angry drivers tonight.
Oh,
and,
man,
and I'm the one.
good.
And I'm the one here who doesn't come off as the angry driver. Go figure.
I'm not an angry driver.
Steve is angry at the cops when they pull him over.
I'm super nice to the
You know what?
cops.
I've actually been thinking, because I think I'm going to get a ticket soon. I've actually been thinking more and more about Justin's talked about this before and I've seen more dialogue on this stuff. Just don't say anything.
Yeah.
Like when I eventually get pulled over in the HOV lane and they're like, yeah, you're in the, I had no idea I was in the lane. I don't even know what the rules are. God, I'm just going to say no comment, and I'm no comment, sir.
I wanted to use it today. I actually thought about calling Justin to ask if I should use the lane. And every lane was stopped on the 15. Stopped. Yeah. And the HOV lane is just flying by. And every car had one person. And I was like, okay, they can't possibly get everyone, right? But I knew it'd be me that would get pulled over. So I was like, I'm just going to stay here in the traffic and sit here for the whole time and just wait it out. Let all these people fly by and one person in a car.
There's times going north to the Spaghetti Bowl where it could be like it could be 4 or 5 lanes across. It's all tractor trailers. I'm like, it's not even safe to try to get over. So I'm not getting over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were in the same traffic, Adam, because I was coming from the same place going towards the same place. You guys were out at Parkway out by my house out here now, right? The new one? Yeah. Yeah. So my kid's school is like 2 blocks away from that. And so I was driving through that same traffic going through, and I had the same thing because a fucking tractor trailer went in the HOV lane. I'm like, really? Come on. I guess
there's a bunch tonight on the way down. Yeah, there was a bunch on the way down there. They were blocking the 2 left lanes. So I was like, this is ridiculous.
Didn't we talk about this? Couldn't you kill somebody and use the body? Does it say live people in the car? Or just drag a body?
There's case law on that. No, somebody was driving a hearse.
That's great.
Funeral home, went in the HOV lane, and they were like, "No, dude." I just like that he. I like that he fought it. Because there's case law on it. So he fought it and fought it on appeal. Love it.
It's tremendous. I think they should win that just on principle.
I agree. How often is somebody driving with a dead body? Come on now.
I mean, I would do it. I would buy like a corpse.
Okay.
I would buy a corpse. Just put it in there. It would save me so much time.
Uber yourself out as a hearse driver, like a funeral home driver. Like, hey guys, if you ever get too busy, just let me know. I'll come pick it up. Might drive it around for a day or 2, but it'll get there.
Yeah, does that count? Does that have to be an adult? Brady said
kid in the car seat counts. Kids count. Yep.
Okay. It shouldn't.
Brady said it's allowed, but they can't see the kid.
Isn't the spirit of it that you're carpooling? Isn't that the spirit of the law?
Yeah, it's the spirit. Yeah.
And the whole thing was made so that people would carpool and save energy.
I know. Isn't that the fucking craziest thing when you actually think about these HOV lanes, that they were like, oh, people are going to, they're going to see this opportunity and they're going to be like, you know what, Adam, where are you going today? Oh, you're going to the Rampart too? Don't drive. I'll come get you.
Sure.
We'll go to the Rampart together.
I don't think it's ever once happened. Not once.
Yep. Yet another policy or law that is anti-single person. So,
I mean, we actually do. I will say this from a kid's perspective, it happens all the time, right? My kids carpool every day. Like, I pick up the neighbor kids, I drop them off. One of the other neighbor families pick all the kids up. There's a volleyball family. Like, we carpool with the kids all day long, so that's real. But that has nothing to do with HOV lanes. It's just it's a pure logistics.
Sure. It's a fair question.
What about this one? What if I get pulled over because they believe I only have one in the HOV lane they found secondary offenses? Would it be thrown out since they shouldn't have stopped me in the first place? basically.
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of secondary offenses we're talking about here. Like, I mean, if you got a warrant, no, they get your ass, right? But if you're saying like you've got fucking weed in the car and you've been smoking it, and they pull you over, their stop was legal. They didn't purposely try to pull you over. They thought that you only had one. You had others. Okay. They can't fake pull you over to try to catch you on secondary offenses, but they can legitimately pull you over. There not be a crime. And then they notice secondary offenses like, oh, there's smoke coming out of the car and it smells like weed. You know, they got you.
All right, good stuff. That's a wrap tonight. Back tomorrow with Dave Koken. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.